The Pope has connected his crusade to help the poor with another call to protect the environment. He's met with anti-fracking activists and posed for photographs holding one of their anti-fracking T-shirts. And his apostolic exhortation released last month, where Pope Francis wrote that our global financial system is creating a growing gap between the wealth of the few and the poverty of the many. He also wrote this: in this system, which tends to devour everything which stands in the way of increased profits, whatever is fragile, like the environment, is defenseless before the interests of a deified market, which becomes the only rule. So this is another interesting sort of area in which the Pope, Michael, is diverging from sort of the conservative, I guess you could call it political theology in the U.S. And there actually have been some hints that the first encyclical the Pope issues will be on the environment.
That's right. You stole one of my lines there. That's good, though, because you're exactly right. And we can see this going back to John Paul II with the Gospel of Life. There's a little hint of a kind of consistent life ethic that starts to come out in the 1990s about environmental awareness and fighting environmental degradation. But what's happened here with Pope Francis from his first inaugural homily, we start to hear care for the poor, care for creation, care for the poor, care for creation. It was this refrain. I wrote a blog post for Commonweal magazine saying I couldn't believe the amount of times the word creation and environment kept coming up. And then when folks were asking about what will the first encyclical be, the first single-authored encyclical by Pope Francis, and people were saying, well, is it going to be this Beati Pauperes, this Blessed are the Poor encyclical that we've heard about?
And just for a second, explain what an encyclical is for those who are not Catholic.
An encyclical is a very long letter that is intended to be read foremost by bishops of the church, but really by everyone. And it's the highest teaching function council of the church, really. And it's what we tend to look back over time to look at how papal thought develops. So people asked the spokesman, and the spokesman basically said, look, the teachings on poverty are pretty well known of the Catholic Church, and Pope Benedict XVI just wrote this big thing about it. But where there's really an opening is ecology, and this is something this Pope is really thinking about because environmental degradation disproportionately affects the poor.
Right.
And so that's the connection for him.
Matt, I just picture conservative heads exploding at seeing this Pope with an anti-fracking T-shirt because, of course, fracking has become another one of these sort of political doctrines.